One problem is that, in the early church, there was a debate around the physicality of Jesus' resurrection.
Yes.
So the canonical tradition ends up stipulating that Jesus physically resurrects, and you must believe that, otherwise you're a heretic.
Yeah, and that's part of the Catholic particular emphasis on the divinity of the body, which has a real wisdom rather than a disembodied soul.
But you also have like the Gnostic tradition, broadly speaking, the Gnostic tradition in early Christianity that's so popular that Valentinus nearly becomes the Bishop of Rome. He's nearly the Pope. And there's I talked about this the other day, and I should have looked it up. I can't remember which church father it was that was telling the church community, the early church community, when you go to a new place, don't ask to be taken to the Christian church. Ask to be taken to the Catholic church, because otherwise you might end up in a Gnostic church. It was so popular.
Right.
And a lot of the Gnostic tradition says that the thing that's being gotten wrong is the idea that there was this literal resurrection.
Right.
No, the kingdom of God is here and now. The resurrection is inside of you, and you attain it through gnosis. I mean, the Gospel of Thomas, which is probably the most famous non-canonical gospel, and could have been written at the same time as like the Gospel of John. This is an early text. Doesn't even mention the resurrection. Doesn't mention a crucifixion. It's a list of sayings.
Yeah.
And the very form of that book, as one scholar whose name I've forgotten, unfortunately, has pointed out, of that collection shows that these people believed that the thing that's important is not what Jesus did, but what he said. The thing that's important is the knowledge. The thing that's important, right? And so this resurrection stuff sort of doesn't matter. Now the thing is, in that early church community, somebody who said, well, this question of like the resurrection as a physical, historical event, that you're kind of missing the point. The thing that matters is like, the resurrection that takes place inside of every person.
Yeah.
It sort of sounds a little bit like the kind of approach that you would take. Now, if that's true, that would mean that in the early church, you'd have been condemned as a heretic. So when a modern Catholic says to you, Jordan Peterson, are you a Christian? What do you think about Catholicism? I think that the reason that they're interested is because if it's true what I'm saying, then they would have to say, I suppose, at least according to my understanding of Catholicism,
that's a form of Gnosticism.
I can't count you among my number.
This debate is re-emerging in today's society, where a lot of us who do believe in the Bible or some aspects of the Bible don't believe that Jesus' resurrection was literal, right? Because you have to read the Bible in context. You have to read it. You have to find clues. And when you find certain clues, you come to the conclusion that the Bible is not a historical book. It's not literal. Now, there is a verse in the Bible that will lead you to think that Jesus' resurrection wasn't literal. Jesus was asked, when will the kingdom of heaven come? Jesus said the kingdom of heaven will not be seen because the kingdom of heaven is within you. Now, the minute that Jesus says the kingdom of heaven is within you, that should make you realize that the resurrection, that he went into heaven, meaning that he went into higher states of mind, that he realized his oneness with God. But what the church will leave out is that it's only Jesus who's capable of realizing this oneness with God, or that he is God, depending on what denomination you follow. Now, if we go and look into Eastern traditions like Hinduism and Buddhism, they do believe that you have the same potential that every human being has. So you had the same potential that Buddha had, and you had the same potential that Lao Tzu or that Jesus had. But this is something that's being pushed away or called heresy by the church because we believe that there's hierarchy. You believe that Christ is here and we're here and animals are below us, that there's no equality. When in reality, in the Bible, you can find in many verses that Christ is within you. So if something that is within you is going to have a second coming, which I do believe in, and many of us do believe in, how could the second coming be from a physical body? We find this idea of the second coming being physical in the letters written by Paul, or some forgeries that we do have in the Bible. Now, Paul wasn't there at the event. He didn't see the event. He was writing before the gospel. So he contradicts the gospel because when he was writing, the gospels weren't circulating around those times. And so this creates this problem because a lot of the Christian doctrines do come from Paul's teachings. And Paul, who again wasn't there, he's just going based off what he hears. And you truly know that Paul has no idea what he's talking about because he believed that the God of the Old Testament is the same God that Jesus is speaking about. That alone should let you know that Paul was just using these letters to control people, to make money off of people, to create a church and try to create his own idea of what Jesus taught. But yes, Gnostics do believe that the spark of the divine is inside of you, but not just Gnostics, also Hindus believe that. And they follow the same principles. So it's pretty ironic to me that 1 billion people that predominantly live in India do also believe that Christ will resurrect inside every single person. Gnostics believe this, and even Buddhists believe that the kingdom of heaven is a seed inside of you that has to be watered and that will continue to grow because everything exists inside of you. Now you look at all the verses in the Bible where it says that you have to seek the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is inside of you, Jesus says. And in the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus says that you have to fast from the world to find the kingdom of heaven. So how do you fast from the physical world? You have to turn inward. So you have to let go of your physical senses and go into meditation. As you go into meditation, and obviously to this, for Christians, this is heresy because it's either what the church says or you're wrong. Because they don't bother to look outside the church because the church holds the answer. But the church, again, is just a corrupt institution that is used to control people and make them forget about the spiritual potential. There is no spiritual potential to Christians because for Christians to be saved, someone has to come down from the sky and pick them up. And this is what happens when you give Westerners a mystical book. They interpret the book literally, which completely loses its meaning. The Bible has no meaning, and that's why they create atheists. Because atheists, being logical people, understand that if the Bible is a literal book, it's not aligned with reality. But if the Bible is a mystical book, they really have no foundation to argue with you with. But if the Bible is a mystical book, then they really can't argue with you. They really can't disprove you. But it's easy to find contradictions in the Bible if you're saying that the Bible is a literal book, which is obviously not. If Jesus spoke in parables, the people who wrote the gospel obviously are going to write it in a way that Jesus spoke, in allegories, right? It would make sense. They're not going to write the Bible a literal book. And what value does history have to help society progress? That's what Jesus was here for. Jesus was here to help us progress. But you're not going to progress just from learning about history alone. He's giving us the instructions. He's telling us that we have to be perfect like the Father, Matthew 5:48. But Christians don't believe that. Christians believe that you have to just have faith because Paul says so. And when you listen to Paul, you're not listening to Christ. And when you're not listening to Christ, then we have the problems that we have in society. Because again, I'm not a Christian, but I do believe that Christ's teachings can help society evolve. And the only way to evolve is to understand truly what the Bible means. But again, if you're listening to Christians about a mystical book, if you're listening to Westerners about how to interpret the Bible, you do not understand the Bible. And I'll leave you with this last quote from the Gospel of Thomas. When Jesus said, "Whoever drinks from my mouth will be like me, and I shall be that person, and what is hidden will be revealed to that one."